Okay, it's official. I have decided to take the year off in order to actually place my backlog. Okay, I have dozens of games in my backlog, like I've been discussing in my past videos, that could just, actually use me playing them. And I don't want to be the guy that just keeps buying new games for the sake of it, but then never actually gets to some of the greats that are actually already in his collection. So I've decided to do that. Today's video, however, is about Hellblade 2. Specifically about the fact that Hellblade 2 will be locked at 30 frames per second on the Series X and the discourse around it. I don't actually want to focus so much on the technical performance of the game, whether or not you can or you cannot play a game at 30 frames per second. That's not what's interesting to me. What's interesting to me is the discourse around the game. So let's start immediately, right? Over here, we have an article by IGN, okay? And it talks about how the fact that it is confirmed now, okay, that Hellblade 2 will run at 30 frames per second. Okay, cool. So over here, we see, speaking to GamePro, Mark Sitter Stunhill, the VFX director for Hellblade 2, confirmed that the console versions are locked to run at 30 frames per second with a dynamic resolution with no additional graphical options, such as with performance mode available on console, okay? However, the PC version is not locked. Sorry, let me try that again. However, the PC version is not locked to this feature, and increased frames per second can only be achieved on that specific platform. Now, Slater over here explained that locking the console versions of Hellblade 2 to 30 frames per second made the experience feel more cinematic. Therein lies my primary issue with this. You are saying that the game somehow feels more cinematic for locking it at 30 frames per second, and yet you present this as if it was some kind of artistic integrity, but it isn't, because if it was, you would have locked it on PC as well. And this has nothing to do with the performance of the consoles, regardless of whatever they may be, because you will unlock this on the PC for people that are, in the PC Master Race, people that actually have 4080s and 4090s. You will also unlock it for people that have 2070s and 2060s. It will also be unlocked for people that are still rocking a 1080 card and a 1060 card. And it will also be unlocked for people that are playing on the handheld PCs that are here of late. The Razer Claws, sorry, the MSI Claws, the ROG Allies, the Lenovo Legion Go, whatever Razer's version of the handheld PC is, you're going to get it. On the Steam Deck, it will still be unlocked. So what I take issue with is not the fact that the game is locked per se, but it is the fact that you are lying to the consumers and to the gamers by saying that somehow it's for some kind of artistic merit. It's actually there for you. That's my primary issue with this problem. My primary issue with here is the lie that is being told. It is not even the fact that the game will run how it runs, okay? Now, the second thing that I have here is, let's just go back to the article. Sorry to flip back and forth like that. But over here, it says that nevertheless, Hellblade 2's lock at 30 frames per second is an interesting choice, and what that most recently Xbox first-party studio Arkane Austin received controversy for when its multiplayer shooter Redfall was capped at 30 frames at release before eventually getting a 60 frames per second mode months after its less than stellar launch. Okay, cool. I find this article to be disingenuous in what it doesn't tell you. Number one, notice that this is IGN, and they point out that Redfall was capped at 30 frames per second, and that created a little bit of a controversy, sure. But then they tell you very quickly that months later, it did receive a 60 frames per second patch. Okay. Why don't they say Starfield though? Is it because maybe Starfield still to this day doesn't have a 60 frames per second patch? Another thing. Now, you would think, oh, Emmanuel, that might be a bit too much. Why are you calling them disingenuous over such a small thing, right? They made the point. But here's a point that they should have made if they were being honest with you. Over here, you're going to see that these exact same developers that are now telling you that they want a more quote-unquote cinematic feel, in 2021, 3 years after the game release, they released a surprise Series X and S patch. And over here now, we see that from IGN, they are telling us that Ninja Theory has released an Xbox Series S and X, I'm just going to say Series console, optimization patch for Hellblade Senua's Sacrifice. That's the first game. 3 years after it arrived on the Xbox One. It comes with enhanced visuals. it can take advantage of ray tracing, and then blah 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 blah. There's no plan for the PlayStation 5 version because this is back when I guess exclusives matters. But over here, look at the performance. It will have a maximum frame rate of up to 120 frames per second. Yes, it will have a dynamic resolution in order to get it, but there you go. And look, even on the Series S, it will do 1080p at 60 frames per second. And then so on and so forth. Look at that. The resolution mode offers up to 4K dynamic at 60 frames per second. So on and so forth. So why isn't it that the IGN article pointed out the fact that this cinematic field is complete BS because this Hellblade 2 borrows and follows directly from the first one. And over there, cinematic feel on console was something that as soon as they had the opportunity to, they were like, yeah, we'll just give you the better frame rate. Again, they give a dynamic resolution, and this game over here, Hellblade 2, will also have a dynamic resolution. But on the Series X, the first one had 120 frames per second. So again, don't focus on the fact that, oh, somehow this is using new technology or blah, blah, blah. Focus on the fact that if cinematic integrity was the point of these projects, they wouldn't unlock the frame rate or go beyond 30 on any platform. It is a complete lie. And that's what I don't like about the gaming community, or some aspects, I should say, about the gaming community. Because people are going to now rally behind more disingenuous takes. And let's just go right back to this IGN article. Over here, it says here how Hellblade is taking immersion to the next level. Aside from running on Unreal Engine 5, this is the new teraflops. You know, that little black sheep, that little scapegoat that they have in order to justify the lack of performance coming from the Xbox consoles. Now it's Unreal Engine 5 and all of its ins and outs, all that it means for games. Unreal Engine 5. And look, Hellblade, it goes further. It's also using Epic's games meta-human animated technology. Oh wow, gamer, be impressed. The meta-human, this is like the variable red shader of this game, right? Like, it just feels like we're just treading over the same thing over and over and over again. Look, in order to push the boundaries of real-time facial animation, who asked them to do this? Who asked them to push these boundaries if it was going to go against the mantra that Xbox put out for their consoles for years? Remember when the Xbox Series X specifically was supposed to be the monster that ate breakfast for dinner? Like, oh no, it was supposed to be the console that ate monsters for breakfast. Or I suppose it could have even let those monsters eat breakfast themselves and then eaten those monsters for lunch. It was an all-consuming, all-powerful plinth of human evolution and ingenuity and technology and ascendance. But the funny thing is that this particular game, Hellblade 2, was announced alongside that particular console. So that means that the development for the game and the console was in tandem the entire time. But where did they ever tell you that there was an asterisk to this more powerful console, most powerful Xbox, as they eventually fell back to? There was none. Nothing to tell you, nothing to warn you that soon enough, very quickly, even a project that was announced alongside the console was actually not going to feature all that power. You were not going to see it. And I find this take disingenuous, but we have the gaming community as a whole to talk about, don't we? So over here, I want you to listen to a video that I put out on Twitter. I don't know exactly how the volume situation is going to go, so I will do my best to not talk over the video itself. Let's take a look-see over here. Because I truly despise dishonesty in a gaming discourse. You know, Hellblade has come out at 30 frames per second. This isn't about the technical limitation or the technical performance of the game. This is about the discourse from the gaming community. All the way from the developers, all the way to us, the consumers, or, you know, me as a potential consumer. What I don't like is the lack of integrity. You see, These developers come out here and then they tell us that this game is 30 frames per second because they want us to get a more cinematic feel. Okay, well that's complete lie. That's complete BS. Because if that was the case, why didn't you lock it on PC? Now, before we go on, notice that I specifically say it's not about the technical performance of the game. In fact, this discussion that I'm trying to have is not even about the game itself. Whether you think it looks good or not, whether you're interested or not, whether Hellblade would offer something to you that is worth the 30 frames per second lock on the consoles, or you will go to PC. That's not the conversation. The conversation is how are you saying that this is about the cinematic or the artistic integrity of the project, and yet on the other platform, you don't put this particular restriction on it. If that was the case, why is it that when this thing comes out and it is made to perform on an Asus ROG Ally, a Lenovo Legion Go, an MSI Claw, a Steam Deck, or whatever else it will be on, it will have options that allow you to go beyond 30 frames per second? Are they going to lock it for those handheld consoles? No. For big desktop machines with the 4090s, will it be locked? No. For people playing with a 1080 or a 1060, will it be locked? No. So it's not about cinematic integrity. Stop lying to us. The second thing is, I'm mad at people who always make excuses like, oh, this game looks so good, this game looks so good, oh, it's pushing Unreal Engine 5. Like, what does that have to do with you? They promised you that 60 frames per second will be the standard. And that is another point of contention. The marketing around the Xbox series of console had people like Aaron Greenberg, had people all over Xbox telling you that 60 frames per second, that will be your standard output with hopes of pushing up to 120 frames per second, specifically talking about the Series X. But now that we are just a few years removed, and people want to say, oh, it's a middle of the generation, games are going to start slowing down. Again, people, please remember, this is a game that was announced alongside the console. It's not even a launch game. Like, it wasn't even a launch announced game. It is a pre-launch announced game. This is the game. Just because they deliver it 4 years later doesn't mean that somehow it gets an excuse. It was there since the beginning. It was grandfathered into this console generation. It's crazy that you have to explain this and spell this out loud for people. It is crazy that we have to do this. You see games from the other side, and those offer performance options. You see games from third party, those offer performance options. You see games where the Series S is locked at 30, but the Series X is allowed to go up to 60, so on and so forth. Why can't you just ask the one question that matters, which is why, Phil Spencer, are you allowing this to come out from your first party studio? And that is exactly the question. Why is Phil Spencer, knowing that he is the CEO of Microsoft Gaming, knowing what the hardware team is doing, knowing what his first-party internal studios teams are doing, why is it that you allow this? Again, I did not make even this much of a fuss for Starfield because you can say that Starfield was created and pretty much conceptualized outside of Microsoft's purview. Then they inherited the game as part of the purchase, but the game was already underway. So that's fine, right? That's understandable. Like, yes, it pretty much was, assigned, it came into the house midway through its development, for better or for worse. Okay, cool. But Hellblade 2 was from a studio that they owned from the onset. Before Hellblade 2 officially was like, okay, this is the blackboard idea of what we're going to do, they were already in Microsoft's home. They were already under Phil Spencer's leadership. So why is it that when you had all the way from preconception, all the way to the final product, and you knew the marketing that you were going to put alongside it, you knew the performance targets that these consoles could hit, you knew what this game was trying to achieve and the technologies and the engines that it was trying to use and the meta-human technology, facial capture, whatever it is. You knew all of this all the way through. And you still could. Phil Spencer could turn around today and say, hey, unlock that frame rate on the Series X, and it will be done. It will be done immediately because it is already unlocked on PC. That's the only question that matters. The other thing is, I'm sorry, this game doesn't look that good. It doesn't look good enough to justify this 30 frames per second lock on the Series X. It just doesn't. It's got letterboxing, so it doesn't even do proper 4K. This game was never going to be a system seller, but it looks good. It doesn't look good enough to justify the BS that they're feeding down your throats. And yet you guys keep making excuses instead of asking why, Phil Spencer. And that is the point there. You see, let's take a look at that last point that I made. Let's take a look at what Hellblade 2 actually is. Because I am so tired of people pretending that somehow this game looks, I don't know, like the next revelation of Christ. It doesn't. It truly doesn't. Okay? This game looks good. It doesn't look good enough to justify the BS that they're feeding us. Now, we're going to take a look at this IGN previews, okay? And this IGN preview is, again, super disingenuous. But remember that these are the scenes that were provided to the developers, sorry, to the reporters and the gaming websites or whatever, from the developers, right? These are not scenes that they went in and they recorded themselves. This is like the best of the cherry picked best. But let's take a look at what they actually are. I'm not going to do a deep analysis because I don't need you to zoom 100%. There will be no zooming in. And let's just be honest with one another about what it is that we see in this preview. So here it is. You have, let me mute this because I do not want to be distracted by the sound. Okay? You see these hands reaching. Yes, facial capture is great, right? But look at the scene. It is one face, two hands, and it is darkness all around. What are they rendering? Okay, Manuel, it's just one scene. Okay, let's move forward. Lovia, look at this village, right? Looks really great, right? Looks really cool. Letterboxing. Do you guys see these black bars? This is not a cinematic black bar where the cutscene is happening and then it opens back up for gameplay. This is the game. It will be letterboxed. So that means that it was never even going to hit 4K because at least 10-20% of the screen is just black. It's black pixels. What are they rendering? They're rendering black pixels now in real time? No, only this middle section here, only this tiny sliver of the screen actually has to render anything. This isn't a Horizon Forbidden West that is a sprawling open world with a map where you can see the size, you can go anywhere, you can do anything. No, this is a small linear experience that is like 5 to 8 hours in length, but it is fucking letterboxed. It's not even 4K. Even at its best performance, it's not a 4K game. It can never be a 4K game unless you're playing it on an 8K screen, and then this letterboxing can represent more than 4K worth of pixels. But since very few of us are playing on an 8K screen, to be honest, but let's just look at it. On a 4K screen, this is not a 4K game. It will never be a 4K game. But somehow, we're supposed to be impressed. And again, look at what you are seeing. Fog everywhere. One character. A heart that is in silhouette. Look at the ground. What is being rendered here that makes you think that this game justifies the lock on the Series X? What are you seeing in front of you that you're so impressed by? Let's continue. Okay, one scene. Let's look at this again. Foggy everywhere. Motion blur. A few hearts. This is like, my goodness, what is this? There are people's backyard that are larger than this rendered scene. What are you seeing that makes you think that this game, what are you seeing? It looks good, but it doesn't look good enough to justify the BS. What is this game? It's not 4K, it's letterboxed. It barely has any scenes where you see anything open. You have 5-6 characters in a particular scene, maximum. It's crazy. Keep going. Again, this is like one of the longest views you ever had. But look at all of this fog that can hide all of the low quality textures. What is this game trying to do? If I zoom into that mountain, am I going to be able to see a rock pixel sharp? No. Because that doesn't exist. Because that level of detail doesn't need to exist. Because this game is somehow always foggy. And again, that's fine, right? That's what the artist intended. Sure. But we're not having a conversation about the artistic presentation of the game. We're having a conversation about the technical requirements because this game doesn't require anything. Okay, that was just one scene. Oh, look, the most action-packed scene. Oh, look, it's surrounded by fog again. Get rid of that splash screen. Look at that, one character at a time. There she is. Facial capture. It's great. It's fantastic for one person. Look at these backgrounds. What are you seeing? This game barely ever has to... It barely ever has to... Oh, let me try that again. I'm getting heated. This game barely ever has to render a fucking room. There we go. Oh, look, now we have three characters. Oh, no. Oh, look at this. Boy, you can't even make this up. What is being rendered here? Tell me. What are you seeing that is being rendered where you're like, oh my god, this could never happen otherwise? This game could. Oh, you know what? Let me not go. Let me not go and say something out of whack. Okay. Again, look at smog and smoke. You know what? Let's just go and find a scene that is actually open. You know, where there isn't tremendous like blur. Oh, look, this is the beach scene, right? This is the one that they showed us that was so impressive. But take a look at what is being rendered. Look at that in the background. What's being rendered there? Nothing. Nothing. Look at the skybox, all gray, all misty, all smoky. One, two, three, maybe four, maybe five characters that are again all faded. But no, we're supposed to be impressed. Look at that. Just look at this thing, man. Look at this thing. What is technically demanding about this that the Series X couldn't do it? I don't know why on earth they've cut your God of War Ragnarok, but let's just move forward, okay? Again, this is like probably the most demanding scene. There's sticks, I guess. That's why we needed to do it, right? And then you fight. Oh my god. Did you know that in this game you fight one enemy at a time? One enemy at a time. Look at this scene. There is fire, there is smoke. Again, just obscuring everything. I feel like this is one of those games that if you go, you could pop back out in a developer mode, right? And you could just look at like the circle of things that are being rendered. You would just see one of the smallest, maybe 10 by 10 meters. What is that in American for you guys? I don't know. You fucking figure it out. You will see like a 5 by 5 meter room of objects that are actually being rendered at full resolution. Then everything beyond that is just low quality textures because they don't need to be high because it is just using smog and smoke and fog and mist and gray clouds and nothing. There is nothing in this game that justifies this look. Nothing. Even Starfield, out of all the garbage ass games, even Starfield has more claim to be technically demanding than this game. Look at these scenes. What is happening? That you think that the Series X needs to be locked? Oh my goodness, what a lie. What a lie. Again, let's just move through all of this preview context, right? Okay, you know, now over here, listen. You know what? Good thing they've put this Game of Thrones part over here, right? Because look at all. Imagine if this was the game. If all of this needed to be rendered at the same time, then I would understand. It will still have, you know, smoke and smog. But look how many characters the game would have had to put in. But no, this is not a game. This is the show. Isn't that, bro, this is crazy. This is crazy. Look what the game gives you instead. Isn't that a juxtaposition just jarring when you actually think about like, what am I actually supposed to see? What is my console supposed to perform? This is the most open that it has ever been. And again, you look over here and you're like, yeah, great, detail being rendered. This stick over here probably is 4K or whatever the native resolution will be, right? But then as soon as you go beyond this rock over here, you see beyond that lake, all of that can just be low quality assets because they're all in the distance. And I'm not saying that they should be high quality assets. I'm just saying that this game doesn't have the technical requirement that somehow should lock the Series X, the world's most powerful console. It is crazy. Crazy. Oh, look, rocks. Look at this. Look at how smoggy and... Well, let me get off. You guys understand the point. If you don't get it by now, you're not going to get it then. The last thing I will talk about is the comment section because you have to point out stupidity when you say it true. Because there are some people that listen to the video I just played there and how I talked about the fact that it is about the lack of integrity. It's not even about the technical performance. But they want to somehow go to bat for this game, making it so about something that the conversation was not. So let's just take a look at some of the bad comments. First of all, there's this guy over here that says you have issues with Helldivers being only 30 on consoles. Of course, it isn't. It has the option on the PS5 to be at 60. Over here, join the PC. That's cool. I have a PC. Okay. Now, who else was the thing? You have a few people agreeing. Then over here he says, this guy, oh my goodness, I love PC gamers. Bless Red, the stupidity in PC gamers. You guys are not well versed enough for this conversation. It looks amazing coming from a PC gamer who's seen the best looking games. Okay, great. Like, I guess, since you're a PC gamer, I guess you've seen games, right? Like games that are somehow only available to be seen by PC gamers. Okay, cool. I have a PC, so I guess I'm a PC gamer too, right? I have games on it. There we go. Whether you like it or not, developers have to make games from the jump with frame rates in mind because everything they need to fit in a single frame, blah, blah, blah. GTA 6 will be 30 frames per second. Okay, cool. Here's a problem though. If developers have to make games from the jump with the frame rates in mind, why didn't they make them with 60 frames per second in mind, considering they are an internal Microsoft studio and they knew what was going to be in the Series X? You guys do realize, stupid PC gamers, that these internal studios are part of the development of the hardware because the architects come to them and they say, hey, what do you need in the next console? So Ninja Theory had a say in what went into the series consoles. So when I tell you, Blessed Red, that you are not well versed enough for this conversation and move along, it's not because I don't want to engage you, it's because you're too dumb to be part of this conversation. Because how is it that the people that helped make the console somehow didn't know what the console was going to have and therefore what the frame rate was going to be? Do you think that they woke up from the beginning and they were like, yeah, it's going to be 30 frames per second? And if so, why didn't they say this years ago? Why is it that now we are getting 5 weeks away from the console launch, sorry, from the game launch, and it is now that they are telling us this? You stupid idiot. Okay, let's move forward. It doesn't look good. It looks amazing. This is coming from the previous. Again, if you think that the game looks good, great. But the thing is, my point isn't even about how good the game looks or comparing it to, games on PlayStation, which Uncharted looks better than this game. But let me just say this. It is about the fact that there is nothing in that game that should limit the Series X to only run at 30 frames per second because they are barely ever rendering anything. Okay, cool. You're right. I forgot it's not even 84K, of course, because of the letterboxing. Okay. Now, via this person says I was doing good and he was with you until I said it doesn't look good. It's not that I said it doesn't look good. I clarified that it doesn't look good enough for the BS that they are giving us. That's really the problem. Okay. Now, over here, this person, pulls out the PlayStation 5 box. Great. Now, I must truly despise this, right? Because this is dishonest in gaming discourse. I must be livid about this. I am livid about this. When people ask me, what is it that you want the PlayStation 5 Pro to deliver? I said specifically this middle one. I said 4K 120 frames. I told people, and people, even J-Dub was going up against me like, listen, you've got to be reasonable. And I said, no, they put it on the box. I didn't tell Sony to put 4K 120 on the box. Now, some people are going to say, okay, they didn't say it was going to be 4K at 120 frames. But here's my problem. They stacked it. Okay, when you stack it like that, it kind of sends the message that that's what you're targeting, isn't it? That you're kind of targeting 4K at 120 because they kind of go together. Why didn't they put them side by side? Okay, fair enough, right? Cool, small thing. But I am livid about this. I am, and I have gone in on this particular issue that you promised 4K 120, and also where is the 8K game from first party? I know that there is the Tourist on PlayStation that is 8K at 30 frames per second. Cool. I'm glad that the third-party indie developer or whatever they are provided this thing that justified this specification. No problem. Everything is cool. But here's the thing. It is Sony that promised 8K. So I want Sony Studios to give an 8K game. So yeah, I am livid about it. And I have talked about it. But when you talk about PlayStation things as a PlayStation fan, PlayStation people go, okay, you have a point, I agree or I disagree. But the Xbox people never pay attention. So then when you actually point out something good versus their side, like a valid criticism, they want to go and they want to make it seem like that's all that you do. Like you never actually kind of like call your own house out. That's a lie. But in any case, let's move forward, right? Now, over here, again, stupid console. I feel like this is a PC gamer. He does realize that PCs are more powerful than consoles, right? Let me humble you for a second. In this generation, there are around, let's say 50 million PlayStation 5 souls, right? And there are let's say maybe 5 million, at the minimum 5 million Series X consoles, Series X specifically sold, right? That would be about 55 million combined consoles that are at the top performance of this particular gaming console generation. Okay, cool. Do you realize that most PC gamers are on 1060s, 1080s, 2060s, so on and so forth? Do you realize that even if you say that there are 250 million Steam PC gamers, right? There are still more consoles like the PS5 and the Series X out there in gamers' hands than there are gaming specific PCs that are as powerful as those consoles. Let me say that again. If there are 55 million PlayStation 5 and Series X consoles out at minimum, that number is higher than the number of gaming PCs that are more powerful than those boxes. So again, stop pointing out that their PCs are more powerful because they are not more powerful by default. My laptop is a PC. Any random desktop is a PC. PC can be more powerful than a console, but most PCs are not. There is maybe, if you are extremely lucky, 10 to 15 million gaming specific PCs. I mean, there's no such as a gaming specific PC, but a PC that is more powerful than a PlayStation 5 and a Series X, and also is incidentally used to play games on. Maybe 10 to 15 million. This like the entire point of the PC master race is that you guys are supposed to be rare. So you are rare. So stop pointing out like the fucking obvious. Okay. Then we have over here, Steam Deck and Asus ROG will not make Hellblade 2 run at 60 frames per second, but they will have an unlocked frame rate, right? Because I never said that the issue was that they could run at 60 frames per second. I said that the issue is that you have unlocked the frame rate. Okay, cool. Over here, you didn't mention Dragon's Dogma 2 running at 30 frames per second when you played it. First of all, I don't even know who you are. I haven't played Dragon's Dogma 2. Second of all, Dragon's Dogma 2 is unlocked on the consoles. It is allowed to fluctuate up and down. Now, it doesn't deviate far from 30 frames per second, but it is unlocked. And they did not come out and say it was quote-unquote more cinematic. Then over here, we have a person who says, who fucking cares? And I say, clearly, I do. If you don't, why are you here? And he says, I suppose, just to talk shit. And isn't this one of the most sincere responses you've ever seen on Twitter? Like, you just come in and you just want to be a part of the conversation. Again, that's just PC gamer behavior. I'm not saying that he's a PC gamer, but that is definitely their bag. Okay. I don't know. Over here, it is a grown man child. You see, they're doing things, the things you'll do for clout. And this is the thing that these people, when they have nothing good to say, they just want to invalidate your point, even though your point is valid, by attacking your character. That's literally what they want to do. So apparently I'm doing this for clout because I can't be a part of the gaming discussion because I actually, enjoy games. No. You're doing it for clout, for likes and clicks. Like, okay, cool. You received 6 likes on this particular post. Great for you, right? In fact, let me give you 7. There you go. Did this now validate you? Do you feel better about yourself? Do you now, are you going to sleep more peacefully at night because I gave you a 7th like? Like, are you serious? Are you stupid? I think you're stupid. Let's move on. Either play the game or don't. That's perfectly fine. This is a fine choice that I will have to make as a consumer. I will either play the game or I will not. There's no problem. But that wasn't the point, was it? Because my point was not even that I wouldn't play the game at 30 frames per second. My point was that the developers are lying to us, the gaming community is covering for those lies, and even the gaming industry as a whole, when it comes to news and journalism, like we saw at the beginning of the video, they are being disingenuous in the way that they cover it because they want to make it seem like somehow it is a justified thing. Okay. I do believe we should, as gamers, hit back on the promises are not met or if lies are detected. Exactly the point, right? Okay. So a few people agreeing because, of course, they understand because, some of us are not crazy. Some of us are actually, we are capable to understand what the point is. Because this guy says he's right. If they want to have a cinematic feel, then keep it at 30 frames per second. Then why is it unlocked for PC? It makes no sense. And that is the point. That is the point. Okay. Now, you guys have kind of seen the discussion. And I want to end with one last thing. Let's talk about Phil Spencer's performance. I was listening to Muchi's podcast. Fantastic show. Fantastic show. And one of the topics was, what would you grade Phil Spencer's tenure at Xbox for the last 10 years? And people ranged, between a B or B plus to a C or C minus. Okay, cool. Here's my problem. A C is still a passing grade. And Phil Spencer does not deserve a passing grade. Phil Spencer has been a complete and abject failure for the Xbox platform ever since he took leadership of it. Phil Spencer is upheld by the Xbox community as the person who saved Xbox. But what did he save it from? Tell me, what has he saved it from? Has it been because he saved it, supposedly, allegedly, quote unquote, from being cancelled by Microsoft? Okay, cool. But don't you think that when he was brought on to the scene as the leader of Xbox, because of course he'd been there for years before that, and he'd been fucking up before that anyway, but we don't have time to get into it. Don't you think that he was there to bring back console sales? Don't you think he was there to do a turnaround the way that the PS3 had to do when they fucked it up? He was there to make the console more marketable, more sellable, and put it into people's homes and into gamers' hands. What has he done for that? So tell me, how do you give Phil Spencer a C minus, a passing grade, when he is doing worse selling this generation of console than the failure of the failed generation of consoles that you brought him in to save? Like, how is this possible? So imagine if you were running a yogurt shop and suddenly you get a manager that sells only 500 yogurts per week. And you say to that manager, wait a second. When I was running the show, when I was in charge of this particular yogurt shop, yogurt shop. I think I combine yogurt and donuts there, which would be a great idea for a yogurt shop. But in any case, when I was in charge of this particular, yogurt shop, I was selling 2,500 yogurts per week. So you say, you know what? You're fired. I'm sorry, I can't work with you. And you get a guy from underneath him and you're like, listen, we are at 500 yogurts per week sold through this store. Please come in and save this shop. And then 10 years later, he is selling 200 yogurts per week. How are you giving that guy a passing grade? The only grade worth giving Phil Spencer is an F. He failed at doing the thing he was supposed to do. Now, you can say, oh, the guy started a yoga subscription. But here's the thing, the yoga subscription isn't profitable. It's a nice venture to do. Game Pass is a wonderful venture. I've never had an issue with Game Pass as a whole. I've always had an issue with Game Pass day and date. But Game Pass as itself is great. But you know what is great for? A company that's already doing well. Because you have to have an attractive yogurt store for people to want to subscribe to your yogurt subscription. So your job as Phil Spencer, the head of my yogurt store, was to come up with new flavors, new offerings, new packages, donut partnerships, cookies partnerships, to attract people into the store so that they will become a fan of the products that we put out. And then from there, you could say, okay, listen, people, you are a regular customer. You would benefit from a subscription where we deliver the yogurt to you, where we allow you to get the same yogurts that you get at a discounted price, where we have special offers that are unique to members of the yogurt membership of whatever. That's what you would do. Game Pass needed to succeed and could only have succeeded after the recovery in console sales had happened. And now we have games being sold through the PlayStation Store, on the PlayStation platform, on top of being sold on the Steam's platform. Are you crazy? How are you giving Phil Spencer a passing grade? He failed. And now he is trying to just recover from that failure by going and putting games elsewhere. How are you as Xbox fans all right with this? How is this okay with you? This is bananas. It's bonkers. It is completely, like, it boggles the mind to think that even the most critical Xbox fans are going to give him a passing grade because somehow Xbox is still around. No. All Phil Spencer has done, in truth, is open more avenues for Xbox to fail in. That's all they've done. They have failed in console sales. They are last place in console sales. And I don't mean third, I mean last place. Because again, it doesn't matter who else you add to the gaming industry pie. Xbox is last. Xbox versus PlayStation, Xbox loses. Xbox versus PlayStation versus Switch. Xbox loses. Xbox versus PlayStation versus Switch versus PC or versus Steam specifically. Xbox loses. Xbox versus PlayStation versus Switch versus Steam versus Android, Google Play Store. Xbox loses. Xbox versus PlayStation versus Steam versus Switch versus Android versus Apple. Xbox loses. Okay, cool. They lose in hardware. So you say, fine. They also lose in software. They sell the least software. It's crazy. They lose in subscriptions. How is it that Switch, the Nintendo platform, backwards as it is when it comes to general good hardware design, backwards as it is when it comes to games that are not made for children, backwards as it is when it comes to network infrastructure, still has more subscribers to their subscription service. They don't offer day and date. PlayStation Plus has more subscribers. It's like, what did he succeed in? How is he last place in everything, but we don't want to give him the last allowable grade? I would give him a Z if it was part of the scale. This guy is an abject failure. F for failure. He has failed. Every avenue that he opens, he fails in it. Even the recent move to put games on PlayStation has been a complete failure from this perspective. From the perspective that they let our Pentiment go out and run at 120 frames per second before that exact same performance target was opened up for his console. Can you imagine that? Can you imagine the lack of fucks given that Phil Spencer must give for you Xbox fans when he sees he sees this? You know this runs by his desk, right? Like, he's not surprised that it ran at 120 frames per second on the PS5. Why would he be surprised? It's his own internal studio that, once again, and I must stress this fact, they had inherited the studio before the game was even a concept. So he knows that this game is going out on the PS5 at 120 frames per second, whilst also knowing that on his own platform, it is still locked to 60. And he's supposed to be a gamer. That's what he's supposed to be. So it's not like you can say, oh, he's just an executive, he doesn't really pay attention to this thing. He's like a Jim Ryan. That was the last time he picked up a controller. You look at Jim Ryan pick up a controller and you can believe it. You're like, you didn't really know the ins and outs of the game. Okay, yeah, we get you. You're just a guy at the top, you just make decisions, just fire people. That's cool. But Phil Spencer throws an entire presentation of himself out there as a gamer. And yet he didn't know all these things. He can't tell that gamers will have something to say about that. Now you have Sea of Thieves coming out with exclusive... Oh my god, is this a joke? Sea of Thieves is coming out with exclusive PlayStation 5 content. Is this a joke? What does Sony have on Phil Spencer? Tell me, what does Sony have on Phil Spencer that he is... Oh my... He lets a game go out from his first-party studio and perform better on the PlayStation 5 than his own console. What do they have that PlayStation gamers... Hey, I'm a PlayStation gamer, right? I'm a PlayStation fan too. PlayStation gamers have no right to get exclusive content. Listen, pre-order bonuses, early unlockables, that's fine, that's cool. Yeah, you know what? You pre-ordered that game, you bought that game, that's cool, right? We'll allow you to unlock some levels early, we'll allow you to unlock some skins early, we'll even give you like a discounted price on the Battle Pass, or we'll give you the first Battle Pass free. Cool, but that is still content that is shared across all platforms, right? Especially across Xbox. But how is it that you let your studio make exclusive content for your rival's platform that your own players do not have access to? Wow. 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 PlayStation has put these games on PC. There is no PlayStation game that has content exclusive to PC. There is no skin in Horizon or no armor set in Horizon Forbidden West that PlayStation 5 gamers do not get to have, but PC gamers do. Do you guys see the level of disrespect? But hey, listen, Emmanuel, you're just nitpicking, right? Okay, cool. I think to drive this point home that somehow Phil Spencer is just letting Sony get away with something that I don't understand how, as Xbox gamers, you are not feeling livid about this. Which game was it? So you had Pentiment, Grounded, Hi-Fi Rush, and what is it? Sea of Thieves as the four games that just came out for PlayStation. But that would not be enough to call him a failure, right? Cool, fair enough. My last point is this: Ghostwire Tokyo, a game that was exclusive to the PlayStation platform, fair enough. Then Xbox inherits it, fair enough. And then it comes out a year later on the Xbox Series X, the world's most powerful console, blah, 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 blah. And it still runs better to this day on the PlayStation 5 than it does on the Xbox Series X. And not, not a little bit better, a lot better. A lot better. An unreasonable amount of betterness is experienced on the PlayStation 5 version of that game than the Series X, even though you've had it for half a generation now as part of your stable. Even though it came out later, and optimization and patches and further development should have told you that the best version should have come out on the Xbox. But you let it happen. Phil Spencer has been a failure to the gaming industry, but he's been doubly a failure to Xbox gamers specifically. And it is a it is a truly sad state of affair that it is PlayStation fans that are more mad about that reality and more willing to discuss that reality than Xbox fans are. Get rid. You know what? I'm never going to say it because I know that's never going to happen. Listen. At the end of the day, I don't understand how Phil Spencer still gets a passing grade to this day. As a PlayStation gamer, does it affect me? Not really. Does it matter? Not really. But the point is this: if you are not calling this out, when you see it happen on the other side, it can happen when it comes to your own house. When Sony released Helldivers 2, which I still haven't bought because apparently people just do not know that there are things that Sony does that annoy me. I still haven't bought it. Why? Because when you take a look at it, Helldivers 2 requires more money from PlayStation gamers than it does from PC gamers because PlayStation gamers have to pay PlayStation Plus, and I'm not okay with it. I said it before, I put it on Twitter. I'm not okay with it. People were saying, oh, just get a PC. The same dumbass responses that they were giving. People were coming with excuses like, oh, well, you don't... No, it's not right. It's not right for them to treat you this way. These are first-party publishers, first-party platforms. When you are part of that first-party experience, you should get the best. I felt, and I still feel, that Helldivers 2 did not give the best to the PlayStation gamer by demanding that they pay for something that PC gamers don't have to pay for. Sean Layden came out and did the interview and said, hey, listen, nobody buys Helldivers 2 specifically. No, so nobody buys PlayStation Plus specifically for Helldivers 2. Fine, fair argument. Point is, it's the principle that bothers me. And so when PlayStation does these things, I have to point it out. And when Xbox does this bullshit, I have to point it out. Because lo and behold, the next PlayStation CEO is going to be like, well, this is something that is now familiar to the gaming community, that our games are going to have exclusive content or play better or run better, or just do something BS like being told it's more cinematic on the home platform, and yet on PC is going to get the full unlocked experience. If you normalize it, it will happen to the PlayStation side too. It's crazy. Nah, man. Hey, I respect Nintendo. Nintendo is coming out here and suing people for taking their games and their property and making it run better on PC without their permission. That's the way that it should be. Nintendo, say whatever you want. That I have huge amount of negative things to say about Nintendo, but they respect and they make their consumer feel valuable. That's what it is at the end of the day. Nintendo, I doubt, I highly doubt that if Nintendo released a game on the PlayStation storefront, that it would run a lot better than it does on their own store, even though the power will be there. There will be something where they're like, hey, listen, we're going to give you the same textures as we give the Switch. We don't care if we can make it 4K textures. If the Switch 2 has, let's say, 1440p textures, and then they decide to release the game on the PlayStation platform, guess what? They're not going to go in and put in 4K texture for PlayStation. They're going to be like, yeah, the best experience is either here, and we are allowed to give you an experience that is on par, but we are not going to go in and then make this version better for you guys over there on PlayStation, even though this is a Nintendo game. They would give that respect to their own consumers. And of course, Nintendo will never do it in the first place, put something else on the competitor's platform. They might put it on PC because, again, that's neutral ground. But on a competitor's platform, Jesus Christ, I will stake a lot of money that they will not do that. Okay, that's been the video, guys. I just think that it's sad. It's sad that we as gamers cannot be honest with one another. It's sad that when these developers come out and they give us BS, we cannot just call them out on it. And we feel the need to attack or defend, you know, depending. It's crazy. It's crazy. And it's all right. It's okay. It's so cool. Phil Spencer has been a massive, tremendous failure. Please stop giving him a passing grade. Give him a D, give him an E, give him an F. Choose between those three letters because that is more representative of what he's and his leadership team has been able to come out and put out for us gamers. People talk about the lack of great games this generation. Okay. This generation only has two pillars. Okay. I know that the Switch kind of came halfway into everything. The Switch 2 is going to come halfway through this generation. They are juxtaposed, but are always kind of one generation behind because of the hardware performance and everything like that. Yada, yada, yada. They only make games for children. Yada, yada, yada. Okay, cool. So there's only two people in this generation. Again, PC doesn't really have generations. They just get upgrade paths. Yada, yada, yada. When one person is delivering, okay, and you can say, oh, they're not delivering enough on PlayStation side, that's fine, that's cool. I would never argue against you if you feel that PlayStation hasn't delivered enough games. Why would I argue against you? They've delivered enough games for me, but if you're going to take the stance that they have not delivered enough games for you, fine, fair enough. In fact, have they delivered enough games for me? No, because I still have my requirement of 4 games per studio per generation. So unless these teams are going to blow us out in the next 4 years or so, coming up with a game every single year, that's not going to be enough games that they've delivered. So we can agree on that point. But the point is, when you take a look at gaming industry as a whole, when you take a look at this gaming generation specifically as a whole, Xbox has been missing. It's been MIA. And whenever they've come in, we have seen unreasonable compromises. Stop protecting them.